pleasant morning to all the viewers. Here we have the media and information sources from Book 4. Now we have the learning competency, which is compares potential sources of media and information. Now here we have the indigenous knowledge. According to Senanayak, the indigenous knowledge is the distinctive knowledge kept to a specific group of people. They are also known or called as the local knowledge, folk knowledge, people's knowledge, traditional wisdom, or traditional science. Also, according to Fernandez, communities generate and transmit this knowledge in a certain periods to be able to adjust their agricultural, ecological, and socio-economic environments. Meanwhile, according to Brewers, indigenous knowledge is generated through a systematic process of observing local conditions, experimenting with solutions, and readapting previously identified solutions to modified environmental, socio-economic, and technological situations. It is usually becomes the basis of their certain community for their daily life. Indigenous knowledge is the transferred from one generation to another, either orally or oral tradition, or through cultural rituals. Oral traditions involve legends, folktales, epics, myths, and folk songs. Now here we have the figure of a group of Igorot pottery mix from Samoki from Mountain Province. Now, according to DeWalt, there are identified certain features of indigenous knowledge that are highly relevant in conservation and sustainable growth. So the first one is locally appropriate, meaning develop in harmony with local conditions. Next is restraint in resource exploitation, or meaning production for immediate survival needs only. Next is diversified production systems, which means avoidance of resource abuse. Then next is resource for nature, meaning treating the land as sacred. Next is human dependence on nature, which means recognizing interdependence of all species. Next is flexibility, meaning adaptation to new circumstances and openness to external knowledge. Lastly, social responsibility, which means strong family and community ties with an obligation to preserve the land for future generations. Now here we have the library. A library is a building, room, or organization that has a collection, especially of books, music, and information that can be accessed by computer for people to read, use, or borrow. Aside from books and journals, libraries also house advanced e-resources, and most libraries offer the following services, like user services, which is to link people to desired information. Next is technical services, which is to gather, catalog, and prepare library materials. And also computer services, which is to maintain databases, program software, design web pages, and handle hardware maintenance. And lastly, administrative services, which is to manage the library, handle contracts, and supervise employees and prepare budgets. Libraries are also classified as academic, public, school, and special. Now here we have the internet as defined in the Oxford Dictionary. The internet is a global computer network providing a variety of information and communication facilities, consisting of interconnected networks using standardized communication protocols. Now we have the evaluating information found using the internet, which is authorship, publishing body, accuracy and verifiability, and lastly, currency. And there are things to consider in evaluating information, which is called RABAT, which stands for R is reliability, A for accuracy, V for value, A for authority, T for timeliness. For the reliability of information is for verifiable and trustworthy information. Next is accuracy of information is to proximity of information to actual data measured based on context. Next is the value information. It is information's usefulness in decision making or improvement. Next is the authority of source, which means the consideration of credibility of information source. Lastly, timeliness, which is the relevance of information in relation to its product and acquisition time. Now there are skills in determining the reliability of information. Number one is to check the author. Next is to check the date of publication or update. And then check for citation. Lastly, check for the domain or owner of the site or page. Com is for commercial, edu is for education, mil is for military, gov is for government, org is non-profit organization.
Okay, now let us move on to the other classifications of information sources. So we have primary sources of information. So this refers to original materials. These are materials from a certain period of time that have not been filtered, modified through analysis, interpretation, or evaluation. Also, primary sources are the basis of other researches. They are commonly the raw products of written text. Hence, they show original thinking, present a discovery, or impart new information. So here are the following examples of primary sources of information. We have the artifact. So it refers to something made or created by humans, such as a tool or a work of art, especially an object of archaeological interest. Next is we have the diary. It is a record with distinct entries organized by date reporting on daily activities or other periods. It can be personal, which may include a person's experiences, thoughts, or feelings. Okay, so figure 2 is the example for an artifact. And then we have figure 3, which is the example of the diary. So next is we have the patent. This is the granting of a right to an inventor by a sovereign authority. This grant affords the inventors exclusive rights to patented process, design, or invention for a designated period in exchange for a comprehensive disclosure of the invention. So figure 4 is an example of the patent. Next is we have the audio or video recordings. So these are the primary sources of information that captures real-life events, speeches, interviews, or performances in audio or video format. These recordings provide direct access to the original sounds and visuals of the time period, offering valuable evidence for researchers studying historical, cultural, or social phenomena. They preserve authentic voices, emotions, and actions, making them a powerful tool for understanding and analyzing past events or documenting contemporary life. So, another example of primary sources includes emails, interviews, journal articles, letters, minutes of meetings, conference, and symposia, newspaper articles, original documents, photograph, records of organization, research survey results, speeches, works of art, literature, architecture, and music, and websites. Now let us move on to the secondary sources of information. Okay, now compared to primary sources, secondary sources are not easily defined. Generally, written after an original product, they usually aim to give reflection or analysis. So, in short, they are analyses, interpretations, and evaluations of primary sources. Secondary sources are not proof, but rather explanation on and discussion of evidence. Secondary sources may be classified as an index type, survey type, and reference type. We have here indexes. So, indexes are basically typically found as one or more individual volumes at the end of a set. For example, index, bibliography, indexing periodicals, and abstracting periodicals. Next, as we have the survey type. It involves the product of examination or description of someone or something. Examples are reviews, treatises, and monographs. So the reference type consists of materials collected from others' works, such as encyclopedia, dictionary, handbook, manual, and critical tables. Now let us move on to tertiary sources of information. So these are commonly confused with secondary sources. So tertiary sources involves information that collects and organizes from primary and secondary sources. Tertiary sources includes bibliographies of bibliographies, directories in yearbooks, guides to literature, and list of research in progress.